The song he pawned. The pawnshop window was dusty, littered with forgotten dreams, a cracked violin, a faded wedding dress, and an old guitar with chipped edges. Daniel pressed his hand against the glass, eyes locked on that guitar. He wasn't a musician anymore, not since life had forced him to trade melodies for bills. But every time he passed that window, it felt like the strings called to him. Daniel wasn't just a man with a broken dream. He was a father. A single father raising his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, in a world that often demanded more than he had to give. He worked long shifts at the railway, his palms hardened from labor. Yet every evening when Lily climbed onto his lap with a book, his eyes softened. She'd point at the pictures and ask, "Daddy, tell it like a story." And so, Daniel would weave tales of kings and knights, but inside he wondered if he'd ever be more than just a tired man trying to survive. Lily's mother had left years ago. No letters, no calls, just absence that echoed through birthdays and Christmas mornings. Daniel never spoke ill of her. He simply told Lily, "Sometimes people lose their way." But late at night, when the house was quiet, he'd sit alone at the kitchen table staring at the empty chair. That silence carried a weight heavier than any shift at the railway, and yet he never let it dim the way he loved Lily. To her, he was enough. More than enough. Back when life was kinder, Daniel used to play the guitar for Lily. He had written a lullaby just for her, soft and simple, something no radio ever played. Her tiny fingers used to pluck at the strings while he laughed, saying, "One day you'll play better than me." But after her mother left, after the bills piled up, after hunger forced choices no father should make, he pawned the guitar. He told Lily it was just for a little while, but little while turned into years. The lullaby went silent. One rainy morning, Daniel had to choose between paying rent and buying groceries. His stomach twisted as he opened his wallet. He had barely enough for one. As rain soaked his jacket, he walked Lily to school under their shared umbrella. At the corner of Maple Street, the pawnshop window caught his eye again. The guitar still hung there, strings dull but waiting. Lily followed his gaze. "Daddy, that's your guitar, isn't it?" Daniel forced a smile. "It's just a guitar, sweetheart." But inside, it felt like a piece of his soul was trapped behind that glass. One afternoon, Lily came home from school waving a crumpled flyer. "Daddy, there's a talent show. Can I sing?" Daniel froze. "Sing? What would you sing?" Her smile was bright. "The song you used to play. My song." The words cut deep. That lullaby belonged to a guitar he no longer had, a past he had buried under shifts and sleepless nights. But how could he tell his daughter no? He simply nodded and said, "Of course, sweetheart. We'll figure it out." That night, Daniel stared at the ceiling, listening to Lily hum the lullaby from memory. Her voice was sweet but fragile, like a bird learning to fly. He thought about her standing on a stage, singing without music. Something inside him broke. The next morning after his shift, Daniel walked into the pawn shop. His voice trembled. "How much for the guitar in the window?" The shopkeeper smirked. 200. Same as always. Daniel's stomach dropped. 200 was nearly his rent. But for once, he wasn't thinking about bills. He was thinking about a little girl's voice and a lullaby that deserved to live again. That week, Daniel skipped meals. He told Lily he wasn't hungry, pushing food onto her plate instead. At work, he stayed late for extra shifts, his body aching. Still, he couldn't scrape together enough. The fridge grew emptier by the day. But when Lily asked why he looked so tired, he simply smiled. "Just working hard, princess. So you can shine." Behind closed doors, he whispered prayers into the silence, asking for strength he wasn't sure he still had. The night before the talent show, Daniel sat on the edge of Lily's bed. She looked up at him with hopeful eyes. "Daddy, will you play with me tomorrow?" His throat burned. "Sweetheart, I can't, not this time." She frowned. "But why?" He kissed her forehead. "Because tomorrow the stage belongs to you." As she drifted to sleep, Daniel sat in the dark, guilt pressing against his chest. He wanted to give her the world, but all he had were calloused hands and broken promises. The weeks turned into months, and life didn't magically ease. Rent came late, groceries were carefully counted, and Daniel's body carried exhaustion like a second skin. He worked double shifts at the railway, often coming home with grease still on his hands, too tired to eat. Yet every night, before Lily fell asleep, he read her a story, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Sweet dreams, princess." But when the lights went out, he would sit alone at the kitchen table, staring at overdue bills. The silence pressed heavy, reminding him of the guitar-shaped absence in the corner. Still, he never let Lily see that weight. Sometimes other parents at school events wore polished clothes, talking about vacations and careers. Daniel stayed at the edge, invisible, a man who gave more than he ever kept. But Lily never looked at him with pity. She looked at him with pride, running into his arms after every class recital, every art fair, shouting, "My daddy's here." And in those moments, Daniel realized the world might see a man who lost everything, but in Lily's eyes, he was a man who gave her everything that mattered. One night, as rain tapped gently against their window, Lily asked softly, "Daddy, will you sing to me, like you used to?" Daniel's chest tightened. It had been years since he'd sung without the guitar. His voice felt worn, cracked from silence, but Lily's expectant eyes pulled him in. He cleared his throat and began humming an old lullaby, one he had written long ago for her mother but later sang to baby Lily in a rocking chair. The notes were shaky, fragile. Yet Lily closed her eyes and smiled, swaying with the melody. "It's beautiful," she whispered, half asleep. In that moment, Daniel realized music wasn't gone. It lived in memory, in the simple act of sharing a song with the person who mattered most. He didn't need a stage. He didn't need applause. His audience of one was enough. From that night forward, he sang to her often, sometimes softly while washing dishes, sometimes playfully while walking her to school. His voice cracked, yes, but it carried something raw and unpolished, truth. And Lily, without knowing, was slowly learning that her father's broken dreams were quietly weaving into her own heart. The town's annual community fair came with bright banners and the smell of cotton candy drifting through the air. Lily begged Daniel to take her. He couldn't afford rides or prizes, but he agreed, holding her hand as they wandered through the fairground. That afternoon, an announcement came. "Children's talent show begins in 5 minutes." Lily's eyes sparkled. "Daddy, can I try?" Daniel hesitated. "Sweetheart, what would you do?" She grinned shyly. "Sing. The song you always sing to me." His breath caught. "Are you sure?" Minutes later, Lily stood on a small stage, microphone shaking in her hands. Daniel stood in the back, heart pounding harder than when he once performed. Then she began. Her voice, sweet and clear, carried the lullaby he thought had been lost to time. The crowd quieted, listening. A few parents wiped their eyes. Daniel's vision blurred with tears. His song, reborn through her, was no longer broken, it was alive. When she finished, the crowd clapped warmly. Lily ran to him, leaping into his arms. "Did I do good, Daddy?" Daniel hugged her tight, whispering through tears, "You did more than good. You brought music back." Later that evening, as the fair wound down, a man approached Daniel near the lemonade stand. He was older, kind-eyed, wearing an apron that read Maple Café. "Your daughter's voice," the man said. It carried something rare, something honest. Daniel smiled, still overwhelmed. "She gets that from her heart," the man chuckled. "Maybe so. But I also noticed the way you watched her, like someone who knows what it means to give everything. I own the cafe downtown. We host live music on weekends. Would you consider playing? Doesn't pay much, but it might keep the music alive." Daniel's chest tightened. He hadn't touched a stage in years, not since before Lily's mother left. Fear whispered he was too old, too tired. But then Lily tugged his sleeve. "Please, Daddy, play again." He nodded slowly, voice low. "Maybe it's time." The cafe owner patted his shoulder. "Come by Saturday. Bring your daughter. She can sing too." As they walked home, Lily skipped beside him. "You'll play again, Daddy. I know it." For the first time in years, Daniel let himself believe she might be right. Weeks passed, and the cafe nights became routine. Daniel borrowed an old guitar from the cafe owner, fingers stiff at first, then slowly remembering the language of strings. Lily often sat front row, eyes glowing, mouthing along to every word. Sometimes she even joined him on stage, her small voice harmonizing with his. One evening, the pawnshop owner slipped quietly into the cafe. He listened from the corner as Daniel played. When the set ended, he approached, eyes softer than Daniel remembered. "You pawned a guitar here months back," he said. "It's been sitting in the window, but after hearing tonight, that guitar doesn't belong with me." "It belongs with you." Daniel blinked, stunned. I can't afford it." The man shook his head. "Half price. Pay when you can." That night, Daniel brought the guitar home. When Lily saw it, she gasped, hugging it as if it were treasure. "Daddy, your guitar came back!" Daniel's throat burned. For the first time, he felt as though life had given something back, not just taken. He tuned the strings, strummed softly, and whispered, "We're home again." Months later, Daniel and Lily stood together on the cafe stage. His hand strummed the familiar guitar, while her voice lifted the lullaby higher than he had ever dreamed. The small crowd clapped along, some with tears in their eyes. It wasn't fame. It wasn't fortune. But it was family. Daniel looked at Lily and realized something profound. The guitar had never been the dream. She was. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every empty meal, it all led to this moment. As the final note faded, Lily leaned into the mic. "This was my daddy's song. Now it's ours." The crowd erupted with applause. Daniel smiled, tears glistening, knowing he had given her more than just music. He had given her proof that even broken dreams can be mended when love holds the strings. And in the quiet that followed, Daniel whispered to himself, "The song I pawned came back. Not through strings, but through her." Sometimes the greatest dreams are not the ones we chase, but the ones we give away. Daniel's music lived on in his daughter's smile, proving love writes the most powerful songs. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories.